Hello everybody and welcome back to Random Vids. So this is a video that I wanted to do last year in 2025, but I just completely forgot about it, man. I ran out of time. So I'm gonna do this video today instead. Now, this will be the video for this week. Well, I might do a video on Sunday. We are busy this weekend. So I'm not gonna do a video Saturday. We'll see about Sunday. So today I'm going to be ranking all the characters, all the contestants, I should say, from Disventure Camp Season 4 Carnival of Chaos. So, quick lesson. If you don't know what Disventure Camp is, it's basically like Total Drama, but not as good. In my opinion, it's not as good. A far more adult version, I should say, of Total Drama. So, it's a show that I don't necessarily recommend, but it's there. Basically, it's a YouTube series similar to Total Drama, where they have a whole bunch of characters compete against the $1 million, just like Total Drama, just a little different here and there. Anyway, with season 4 now have ended a few months ago now, I figured that now is a good time to rank all the characters from season 4 Carnival of Chaos. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and let's get to my least favorite character of season 4, and that character is Logan. By the way, before we even start this, there's going to be major spoiler alerts for all of these teams and stuff, because if you haven't watched the season, then a lot of the placements are going to get spoiled for you. Anyway, that's not a good idea. That's not a good sign that the winner of the season is at the absolute, worst spot. Why, out of all these characters, you had a big cast of characters you could have chosen from to be the winners, and it ended up being Logan, because why not? So what's the problem with Logan, you may ask? Well, he falls under the same category as someone like Aiden or Jake or Rhea, where they're just a big-time writer's pet, where they may not be that interesting to us viewers, but ONC decides, hey, we will choose that character to win the $1 million, because why the heck not? I mean, obviously people don't want Jade to win because she totally, didn't deserve it or anything. It just baffles me how lazy ONC can get. People complain about Total Drama and how lazy, some of those seasons are, but at least those seasons, had well-constructed winners. Like, honestly, the worst winners I can think of is maybe Action. Even then, I'd take that over this. Like, geez, Logan. Out of all the characters, Logan? This is the character that ONC chose to win? This season, you know how many characters there are in this season? Why is Logan the character who's winning? Let's look back at older seasons. So season 1 had Miriam winning. But Miriam was a fun character. She was an old granny who didn't didn't let people push her around. And it was fun seeing her versus Fiore in the finale because, it was old versus young. And Miriam really deserved it, and it gave Fiore, honestly, some karma. Even if she was like, a 6-year-old at the time. But, yeah, at least gave Fiore some, karma. And Miriam, it was fun seeing Miriam win because she totally deserved it. She got some great, character development as the season went on. James, same situation. One of my favorite things was after Disventure Camp Season 4, they made Disventure Camp Season 2 reboot. Yes, they rebooted Season 2, which I thought was kind of strange, but I liked it just as much as the first time I watched it. It was fun seeing all these characters again. It was fun seeing Rhea actually be, a human being and not like whatever the heck she was in All Stars. But let's not talk about that right now. James won season 2, and once again, he totally deserved it because he got a lot of character development in that season. And then in season 3, they make Rhea win. She gets 0 character development. If anything, she just gets character downgrade as the season goes on. Constantly hurts Connor and gets little to no penalties for it, and ends up winning just to have a message of winning doesn't buy you happiness. What when they do that, it makes me wonder, did ONC forget that this is supposed to be a reality show? I know they focus big time on the drama, and I mean big, 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 big time on like the characters, but not every character has to have this big, giant story to make, them interesting. Total Drama has been doing this for years, and, it's worked perfectly. Just bring the characters back more often. Like, look at what they did with the original Gen 1 cast in Total Drama. They brought them back so many times that, and the more boring characters were left out some more. So not every character has to have this big, giant, depressing arc. I swear, ONC. Well, anyway, Logan had to go through this whole arc where he was scared of swimming. Oh boy, I totally didn't see arcs like this before in the past. Like, ONC, come on, you're becoming ridiculous now. You're just copying other shows. And not in the fun way of copying. This is just the laziness and not fun way of copying other shows. This is some of my least favorite tropes of all time. Well, okay, I shouldn't say that. Some of the tropes can be fun. Basically, the way they made Logan's character work just didn't work at all. Or it just wasn't fun to watch. Because by the time Merge came around, this dude literally just got tons of plot armor, per usual. I mean, it's ONC. They are going to be getting these characters are going to be getting tons of plot armor. Especially the ones who are just big writer's pets like Logan. And I know there was like 2 or 3 people who probably did like Logan, but most people just couldn't stand this guy. He wasn't that funny. He was given lines that were just really dull and boring. He was a very boring character. And he just didn't deserve to win. Like, he definitely didn't deserve to win. He kept flipping back and forth on everybody. And I don't honestly remember the whole drama because it has been, a few months since I've seen this season. It's just so... This is another problem with ONC. Every single character that they make has to be so complex. That's fine if you have a few complex characters. Total Drama has complex characters like Duncan and Gwen and Heather. That's fine, but you don't gotta make every single character complex. Like, what's the fun of that? You have to follow all these different arcs of all these different characters, and someone like Logan's who's just downright confusing. Also, tell me how this logic makes sense. Natalia gives Logan a coconut to put on whatever vehicle he was driving. I don't remember anymore. And somehow that coconut was heavy enough that it was able to push the pedal down so that Logan can jump out of the car and win the whole season. This has got to be the most disappointing finale of all time. Even All Stars was better than this, just because it was Rhea versus Jake, and there was no way in heck I wanted Jake to win. I didn't want Rhea to win, but there was no way in heck I wanted Jake to win. I didn't care if Rhea was a complete, a complete, what's the word? Not idiot, but just a complete horrible character to watch. Jake is even worse. And Logan does give me Jake vibes, unfortunately. He's just that writer's pet that ONC just loves to bring into their seasons. Guys, this is supposed to be a reality show. Like, if you want to make some sort of show that has all these characters with these big arcs, pick something else. Don't do reality. Because I want to focus on some of the better characters. Characters that are actually, I don't know, good. Yeah, like I said, there is going to be the Logan fans, but they are very, very small. Most people really wanted Jade to win this season, and I was definitely one of them. She 100% deserved it, because not only was, she a smart player, but she was just, more fun to watch, and she did get some, character development as the season went on. Logan, he just existed and somehow made it to the final 3 and won. He is what we call, he got plot armor. Nobody likes plot armor. And unfortunately, we had to watch this character drag his feet through the season to make it to the first spot. I hate plot armor. People say the Total Drama plot armor is bad. Well, whoa, I have a series that's way, way worse with the plot armor. So, because Logan dragged his feet all the way to the finale to win, which he definitely did not deserve, this ends up being my least favorite character from this season. And also the fact that he gives Jake vibes, which is definitely a no-no. Speaking of which, to get off topic for a minute, did you know that ONC is doing a Jake and Tom spinoff series as well? Why do these characters mug the camera so much? Why can't we have better character spin-offs? Ugh. We better move on. I can rant about all the ONC stuff all day long. Maybe it's just not for me. I don't know. But there's a lot of characters who are fun to watch. But, oh, some stuff they do is just like, come on. It's common sense. You don't need a 7-year-old to walk up to you and say, hey, you should totally make Logan win the season. And ONC is like, why, yes. Why did we not think of that? We were totally stupid to think that Jade deserved the million. No, totally this dumb idiot that nobody cares about should win the million. The only good thing I gotta say is thank God he did not return in fans versus favorites. Unfortunately, I can't say that for the next character we're talking about, though. So let's move on to my second least favorite character, which is only steps behind Logan, and that character is Anastasia. What is it with ONC, Disventure Camp, and their post-merges? They just go so horribly wrong ever since Season 3's All-Star season. And I really wanted Season 4 to be a much better season than Season 3. And I guess it is a bit better, but Anastasia is one of these characters who, once again, nobody liked. But she somehow made it all the way to Final 3. How? How did she make it this far? Once again, for one, she is a big writer's pet. But they just gave her nothing to work with. Well, let's start at the beginning of the season where she started dating Marissa, another character on the in this season. Well, once Marissa got eliminated, Anastasia went into full psycho mode to get rid of Linda, because Linda was one of the ones who got rid of Marissa. Well, Marissa came back in the comeback challenge, and unfortunately, and then Marissa gets eliminated again to Isabel. And Anastasia does the same thing to Isabel that she did to Linda. Get Isabel eliminated, and it ends up happening too, unfortunately. So not only is she a character who, once again, dragged her feet to the final 3, but she got rid of 2 of the best characters from the season, Linda and Isabel. And both characters haven't returned yet. Now, granted, this is kind of the newest season, but ONC Season 5 of Disventure Camp is a fans versus favorites season, which means they have 4 people from this season who are coming back. Linda and Isabel aren't one of them, yet they're fan favorites. But one of those characters to return is none other than Anastasia. All I can say is, what on earth were you guys thinking when you decided you were going to bring Anastasia back? This character, why? It makes 0 sense. Come on, how stupid could you be? Unless you have some sort of big arc planned for Anastasia in Season 5, or she's getting eliminated right away. Anastasia got the name of Overstasia because she overstayed some actual really great characters. She got major plot armor in this season as well. Once again, one of the worst things you can do with a season is give a character plot armor. Anastasia got heavy plot armor, and she was, once again, like Logan, not fun to watch. Why is ONC doing this to some of the worst characters? Why are these characters making it this far, and now they're back in fans versus favorites? Why? I'm pretty sure Anastasia was not a fan favorite. Once again, like Logan, she had 2 or 3 fans. But many other people liked characters like Isabel and Linda more. Amelie. There was so many better characters you could have chosen. But Anastasia, like I said, either they have a big plan for her or she's getting eliminated first. Or second, since the first episode has already been released now. So they better have big, good plans for Anastasia, because, man, this lady was not fun to watch. And I think most people can agree with me when I say, what were they thinking when they brought her back in Season 5? What were they thinking? Honestly, it makes me mad. It makes me upset to see the way, Disventure Camp is going. Season 1, Season 2, both of these seasons, for the most part, make sense with, the way they do things. Season 3 and Season 4 make absolutely no sense. Unless, like I said, they're having, some random person come up to them and say, hey, you should totally make this character right there. Yeah, Anastasia, you should totally have her be in Final 3. And ONC is like, why, yes, why did we not think of that? Let's have this character that people already hate, make it further, and not only that, but return in fans versus favorites, because, that's just going to make her character be loved even more. What were they thinking? They obviously weren't thinking at all. That's what. I'm sorry, guys, but I could have written this character way better than you could have. Unless you have big plans for her in Season 5, she is downright one of the worst characters of Disventure Camp. She made it to Final 3 just by getting major, major plot armor. Doesn't that sound like fun to watch for a season? I'm really tired of these horrible characters. Can we finally have a good character, please? Well, let's see what number 16 brings me. Which, that character is Marissa. Next to Tom and Jake, I can consider Anastasia and Marissa the second worst relationship of the Disventure Camp series. Not only are these two just annoying to watch, but once again, they mug the camera with all of their plot armor. At least Marissa is a tad bit tolerable just because of the fact that she wasn't in the season quite as long. But that's the problem. They gave her absolutely nothing to work with. She was a average character pre-merge, but she ended up getting eliminated before the merge, which that's fine. That's honestly a fine placement for her, just because that's pretty much fine. And honestly, this character probably would have been a little bit higher, but they had to bring her back. In the comebacks, Marissa ended up being one of the two to come back. Okay, they must have big plans for Marissa then to bring her back. Nope. She literally just existed just for Anastasia to get more plot armor, so Anastasia could have that extra vote, and to make Marissa just more unlikable. I do not like Marissa at all. But luckily she got eliminated again thanks to Isabel in a Marissa versus Anastasia tiebreaker. The best thing to come out of that season for sure. Out of this season for sure. But man, once again, this character just got, well, I guess not big plot armor, but she just existed. She was not a fun character at all to follow or watch, and her big personality was just Anastasia's girlfriend, I guess. That's another thing. This venture can't. ONC is very fond of, having zero to no, hardly any straight couples in the series. But like I said, this is more of a liberal show, so it's up to you how much you want to watch this or not. But yeah, there's tons of couples like this, and most of them aren't fun, and a lot of them are just kind of forced in your face. And half of them don't even make any sense. So at least Marissa and Anastasia, I guess, kind of makes sense. I just don't like either character. So at least Marissa isn't returning in fans versus favorites. But unfortunately, Anastasia is. But like I said, they better give her a lot to work with. Otherwise, she's just going to be just as bad as she was in this season. Marissa, she just existed to be an annoying character. She got mad that Isabel voted her off. Well, isn't that part of the game? You don't got to be so petty about it. Yeah, Marissa's definitely a very, very below average character and easily deserving of the third worst. Oh, I'm tired of these bad characters. Can we finally get some good characters? Let's see what number 15 has. Diego. Yeah, I don't think I'm alone on this one. Not a lot of people were really big fans of Diego. And it shows because they didn't really give this character much to work with. Plus, he was like the fourth or third person voted out. He was voted out pretty early, but in a way, I'm kind of glad he did get voted off early, and they didn't just make him just this big character that screen hogged the whole season. His main trope was to fall in love with Spencer. That's literally what his personality was. I guess being an explorer as well, I don't know, and being a friend to Hannah just to get voted off, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Diego, but I feel like Diego, it kind of reminds me of Marissa in a way, but vice versa. He started off as a very below average character, but I feel like but thankfully they actually did something right this season and just kind of ended the Diego and Spencer weird, I don't even know what that was. Weird forced relationship. That's what I'm going to call it. The forced relationship. But luckily they ended on a high note because they stopped forcing them into a relationship and Diego could finally move past that and um find other things that he could love. Instead of Marissa where they just made her Anastasia's yes man. I hate when they do things like that to characters. Well, I still am not a big fan of Diego just because they didn't really give him much to work with, but he was one of the earlier ones to boot that ended up getting voted off, so I'm not a big fan of him anyway. ONC does a very weird job with its male characters. Logan, Diego, Jake. But thankfully, thank God, Jake ain't in this season, so we can have a party about that. Nothing else I gotta say about Diego. He's a boring character, and I'm glad he didn't return in Fans vs. Favorites. Number 14, Richard. Well, at least we're finally starting to get out of the bad category of characters and more onto the average characters. But I think Richard still falls into the below average category, but at least he's not like a terrible character. So, I don't mind Richard, I guess. But I don't know. Some of that at the beginning of the season was definitely not some of my favorites. I guess it was kind of fun seeing Richard, Linda, and Ted work together for a bit, but in one of those episodes, Richard just completely flipped out on Linda. Just because Linda was. I forget how it went. Linda was. I forget. She questioned something about Richard. Because Richard, if you didn't know him about this character, Richard is gay. And Linda didn't know that, I don't think. But Richard has, I think, a daughter or something, so Linda was confused of how that, or like how, I think she asked like how his daughter's doing about that, or something like that. And Richard just completely flipped off on her about that. So he spent the whole episode just being, just, picking on Linda and just being very petty about the whole thing. Ugh. Okay, that was not neat and fun. And you can't forget the time that, I believe if I'm saying this right, he forgave Logan but not Natalia, if I'm correct. Once again, it was just one of those things to get Logan further in the game opposed to Natalia. You can see, what ONC's trying to do. You can see the laziness just pouring out of them right there. But even without those two scenes, Richard is more of a just fine character. But I don't know. The time when he flipped out on Linda, I think definitely put him as a below average character in my book. I don't know. I just didn't like that. I think he just took it way too far and trying to sabotage Linda throughout the whole leg. It was just a lot over one simple confusion. I mean, it's not that big of a deal, Richard. So unfortunately, because of that flip out, and it doesn't help that he's an older man too. It's not like he's Jake. Like we would expect this from Jake. But this is an older man. You would think he has more like, more wisdom, more like, he knows what he's doing. He knows not to flip out, but I guess not. So unfortunately, you're going to have to land at number 14 for me. He got out like right after merge, so fair enough placement for him. Let's get to number 13, which is Spencer. Oof, I am very conflicted on this character. On one hand, I'm glad that they finally did a villain character somewhat correctly. On the other hand, Spencer's just all over the place. Like, he doesn't feel like a true villain. And I think a lot of that has to do with the first half of the season, it's a lot of him and Diego. So, that's not fun. Come on, you're trying to play the game. Stop with all this stupid... Well, anyway, a lot of the him and Diego forced relationship, and then later on in the season he tried to be a villain, but I guess it worked to a consent. I don't know. Spencer's a very complex character, so it's hard to really determine where to put him, because on one hand, at least he was on some of my favorite characters' side, like Linda and Isabel, and was against those petty freaking horrible characters that nobody liked, like Anastasia, Marissa, and Logan. And of course, you can't forget the time that Logan got mad at Spencer. I forgot about that point. The problem is that I don't think Spencer really got to shine much this season. he just felt kind of all over the place, and ONC just didn't really know what they wanted to do with this character besides promote him as the villain. But he didn't really get to do much because, like I said, the first half of the season just him dealing with Diego, and the second half he finally starts doing villain things somewhat. But I don't know. However, kind of interesting is that Spencer is one of the four people to return in the fans versus favorites season. Very interesting choice. I mean, I think there's definitely better villains this season that they could have picked from instead of just Spencer. But okay, I'm very interested to see what they do with this character in season 5 because he does have the potential. They just got to, figure out what to do with this character. Um enough with the stupid forced relationships, ONC. Let's please learn from our mistakes, not make the same mistakes again, okay? Nobody likes that. But in this season at least, he is more of a below average, maybe average character. But I am curious to see what they do with this character in season 5. Will he work with Fiore and Alec? Who knows? Well, let's get to number 12, which is Zaid. Oh boy, oh boy. Zaid, Zaid, Zaid. Where do we start with you, buddy? Well, let's say this. The first half of the season, I think ONC really nailed his character. They really gave him, some fun things to work with. He actually had a good story, going in, and he, of course, met Ivy, and him and Ivy started, getting together, and they are such a cute couple, and they are fun to watch. Definitely the best couple of the season. For sure. No questions asked. They didn't feel forced. They didn't feel dumbed down or anything. It actually felt like a true, genuine couple. However, once Ivy got eliminated, something happened with Zaid's character, and unfortunately not in a fun way. I think ONC didn't really know what they wanted to do with Zaid's character anymore. So, like Marissa, Zaid just turned into Ivy's boyfriend. He didn't really have much personality outside of that, besides kind of just existing in the merge. Which is a shame because they really had such a lot set up for this character, but a lot of that just kind of went down the drain. Or he said some weird hypocritical things, or he was just downright mean in some episodes, like the episode he was eliminated in, where he was just downright, mean to Isabel. But he tried working with Anastasia and Marissa, I think it was, but that was the episode that Isabel got Marissa eliminated, so Zaid was upset because he was trying to align with Anastasia and Marissa. Bad idea, Zaid, because unfortunately that's not the best group to be in. But unfortunately that just weakened his character and made him just almost to the point where it was unwatchably annoying. ONC, why do you do this to your characters? People talk about total drama and how they make their characters and stuff like that, and how sometimes they get character derailments. Well, here's your disventure camp character derailment, Zaid, which is such a shame because he was such a great character in the first half, a character who I was basically almost rooting for, and only by merge, once Ivy got eliminated, he just turned into he just kind of existed at one point, and then just turned downright mean and just turned to the point where he was just not fun to watch anymore. Even Ivy pointed this out whenever they met up again. Luckily, they seem like they are a happy couple and they are together, but, oh man, why did ONC do this to this character? So unfortunately, he has to be out of the top 10. But, what a shame. I really hope Zaid and Ivy both return in a future season. But, unfortunately, number 12 is where it's going to have to be. So, let's get to number 11, which is Alessio. Probably one of the most average characters of any Disventure Camp season, because this dude is just downright average. Why is that, you may ask? Well, Alessio ended up being the very first boot of this season, so they didn't really give him too much to work with. But dang, with a cast of 18 players, and Alessio is at 11th place, and half of the characters that I talked about have made it to merge. Oof, that is not a good sign. It feels like everything's just kind of backwards in a way. Although, I will say, Alessio is just an okay character. I have nothing against him. But he's also just more of that, he gives that first boot vibes. But like I said, that's totally fine. Total Drama has been doing this for many seasons where they don't not every character has to have these big story arcs to make them, fun to watch or interesting. But I understand Alessio being a first boot, and at least he gets more screen time in the comeback episode, in the what everyone is doing on the island or whatnot, and then of course the hotel episode. So it is fun seeing Alessio. Plus, I think he has something for Natalia, which once again that's another cute relationship I think too that could potentially be canon, but who knows. But Alessio is very, 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 very average as a character. He's not bad, but he's definitely not one of my favorites. So let's get into top 10 with number 10 going to Tristan. Huh. Okay. Tristan is definitely a very interesting character at Disventure Camp. I feel like he's a lot of people's, I feel like Tristan is a lot of people's favorite character in Disventure Camp. Well, Disventure Camp Season 4. I don't really know why. I mean, Tristan is a nice character, and Tristan was fun, to watch and stuff, too. And Tristan is really nice, too, and Tristan does have funny moments in the series. But Tristan as my favorite? Nah, Tristan's definitely not my favorite. But at least they didn't make Tristan just this big screen hog character who just takes up, the whole season. Tristan got eliminated pre-merge, so I think that's a pretty good placement. But Tristan does make it into the top 10, so there's that. But I think there's 9 other characters that I like more than Tristan. But Tristan is definitely a very interesting character. Well, somewhat. Except for the fact that Tristan and Benji have a weird forced romantic relationship. Here's the relationships I don't like. Where ONC puts 2 characters together just because the fandom said so. Just because someone is like, OMG, you should totally put those 2 characters together and put them in a relationship. And ONC is like, why yes? Why did we not think of that? So with their lazy writing and skills in hand, they end up doing stuff like Tristan and Benji. Okay, this is easily one of the weakest relationships and you know it. Come on, where did this come from? Well, relationship aside, Tristan is still a pretty good character overall, I guess. So nothing else I gotta say about Tristan. Let's move on to number 9, which is Natalia. Once again, another very interesting and chaotic character of Disventure Camp. On one hand, I think she's an interesting character, and she does have a lot of interesting stuff, but I think she's just almost more of the comic relief character, because she does have a lot of funny moments in the show. So when they're not dealing with some boring story arc that I could care less about, Natalia is a pretty interesting character, and she can be pretty funny as well. Plus, she's on the side of the people that I'm rooting for anyway, so that's always a plus. Sides with characters like Isabel, Jade, and against characters like Marissa and Anastasia. That is what I'm talking about. Natalia's chaoticness earned her a spot in Fans vs. Favorites as well, which means, yes, she's one of the 4 people who is going to be in Fans vs. Favorites. While I'm not sure what they want to do with Natalia yet, I am curious to see what ends up going on. So, yeah, it's always fun seeing more Natalia. Also, you gotta love the episode Natalia gets eliminated in Season 3, which I'm not going to say what she ends up saying, but if you've seen the season, you know what she says, and it is funny seeing her get back at characters like Marissa and Anastasia, especially Anastasia, because she deserved it big time. Speaking of which, both Natalia and Anastasia are in Fans vs. Favorites. Ain't that interesting? But even when Natalia was eliminated, which, by the way, was post-merge, she still remained a goofy character. So I am curious to see what ends up going on in Fans vs. Favorites. Will she survive longer? Will she not? Will she be the winner? She definitely doesn't have winner potential. Especially when she's up with some of the best characters of all time, like Gabby, Lake, and Rosa Marie. I can't believe those 3 characters are coming back. 3 of some of the best characters. Gabby is still, in my opinion, the best Disventure Camp character. Thank God she's back. Please don't get 8th. Speaking of which, let's move on to number 8, which is Benji. I feel like Benji's one of those characters a lot of people can agree got better as the season went on. He started off as almost a potential first boot or second boot of the team, but he ended up having some interesting episodes and actually growing as a character and became kind of a fun character to follow as well. I did not think Benji would be worthy of a top 10 list from Disventure Camp, but hey, especially over characters like Zaid, who was originally one of my favorite characters from that team, but Benji grew to be a really fun character. Although, albeit definitely another one of those characters that isn't necessarily some of my favorites, but he's a fine character as is. But he does have the unfortunate forced relationship with Tristan, so very boring, very forced. You can tell, you can clearly see it's a forced relationship. Compare that to like Heather and Alejandra from Total Drama, and you will see the difference immediately. Other than that, though, Benji is still a fun character, and it was nice seeing him and Hannah be good friends in this season. Speaking of which, if you are curious, Benji was like the first one eliminated at Merge, so he is a fun character, and he is the last of the four characters who is returning in Fans versus Favorites. I'm curious to see where Benji does go in this season, but maybe he could potentially be one of the earlier boots along with Anastasia and Aiden, just because I feel like they already gave Benji a fun arc to work with in this season that he doesn't really have much more of an arc to go yet. But I'm curious to see what they do with Benji. He is definitely an interesting character, so I'm curious to see where he goes in Fans versus Favorites. Well, with that, let's get to number 7, which is Hannah. Okay, very interesting character. Hannah started off as a fun-loving, character from this Disventure Camp. She was making friends with Amelie, who was a kind of like a Karen character in a way, to say it. But once Amelie was eliminated, Hannah was now left with no friends. That's okay, she can just make friends with Diego. Well, Diego gets eliminated. What about Tristan? Well, Tristan's eliminated. Okay, Benji. Well, Benji then gets eliminated. It got to the point where Hannah just got so annoyed that she tried to focus her game a little different. Now, she did just... Well, this is the point where she gets her big story arc as well, but, I guess it's a tad more interesting than some of the other characters that we talked about before. Like I said before, ONC, not every character has to have these big arcs. It's just a reality series, okay? Not every character has to have these big, pointless, boring arcs. But I guess Hannah's is a tad bit more interesting, and Amelie was the second person to come back in the, comeback episodes. It was nice seeing Hannah and Amelie back again. And it was kind of reversed now. Amelie has, turned over a new leaf, and she's now coaching Hannah in this season. So it's fun seeing both of them work together. And Hannah made it really far. She made it all the way to Final Four. I could potentially have seen her winning. I mean, definitely over Anastasia and Logan. That's for dang sure. But she remains a pretty good character. Nothing else I gotta say. So let's move on to number 6, which is Ivy. Hey, look, it's Zaid's girlfriend. And man, she's a fun character in this season. Unfortunately, she didn't quite make it to Merge. She was literally the last one eliminated before Merge. But her time in this season was tons of fun to watch. And one of my favorite things with her, well, for starters, she almost seemed like a Rhea done right. Like, she was an actor as well, but unlike Rhea, where they used that to make her a villain, they used that for Ivy to kind of help her out throughout the game. And, of course, she met Zaid, and this relationship and this couple is definitely my favorite couple of the season, no questions asked. It didn't feel rushed, it didn't feel forced, and it was just a fun relationship to follow. But, unfortunately, Ivy did get eliminated, so that's okay. She could just rely on Zaid, but unfortunately Zaid would go through a character downfall and get eliminated anyway, so. But at least the two are happy together, and Ivy is definitely a fun character who I would like to see return in a future season, so yeah, Ivy. She's a great character. Let's move on to number 5, which is Jade. We're definitely starting to get into the really, really good characters now, starting with, of course, our runner-up, Jade. Man, they really did a great job with Jade. You can tell where all the smart, fun writing went with the Disventure Camp characters. Jade definitely took that. And it was fun seeing her and Isabel work together in this season and make an alliance on the very first episode, with both of them getting a idol together. And it was fun seeing both of them work together and Jade just slowly grow into one of the best characters of this season. And she did try to work with Spencer. It didn't work out too well, but it was fun, definitely more fun seeing her and Isabel work together, especially to eliminate all the horrible characters like Anastasia and Logan. Unfortunately, I mean, she did beat Anastasia, but unfortunately, she just couldn't beat Logan because Logan, unfortunately, Jade is the writer's pet. So you can't have the writer's pet get second. The writer's pet wins. They already had Jake get second last season, so we're not going to have the writer's pet get second again. Well, unfortunately, this left many fans, upset because Jade is an actual good character who deserved to win. She actually got character development, and she was fun to watch, the whole season. Maybe more in the later half, but man, she was such a great character who definitely deserved the win over Logan. It just makes zero sense, but, I could chat about how horrible the elimination order was in Disventure Camp 4 all day long if I really wanted to. But yeah, Jade is a great character and definitely one of the best characters of Disventure Camp 5 or 4, I mean. What isn't that weird that a lot of that ONC creates the female characters better than the male characters? Why is that? Probably because of one character, Jake. So half the time the male characters just have to follow in a Jake format, or they're just super petty or whiny, throw fits, or they get eliminated really early. Ugh, I don't know. Jade's a great character though. She definitely makes top 5. So let's get to number 4, which is Amelie. Now this is a really great character. Amelie was originally the second person voted off in this Venture Camp, and she started off as kind of the whiny character and almost kind of like the Karen of the season. But she later returned in the comeback challenge, so thank God, because she is a character who definitely needed, the time. And I think they did a great job with Amelie's character. And she is what you call a fan favorite, not Anastasia, so Amelie should have returned. Okay, well, I think Amelie's ending ended off really well, unlike some of the other characters who definitely needed a return. But it was fun seeing Amelie come back and almost coach Hannah, kind of the way Hannah coached Amelie before Amelie got eliminated. She's definitely a really great character and one of the best of Disventure Camp Season 4. Plus, she's in the Tom Jake series. I literally could care less about the stupid relationship between Tom and Jake. I watch it just to see all the side characters, like Amelie was in it. Gret is in it. One of the best robbed DC characters of all time. And of course, the GOAT Gabby is in it. So I don't watch it for Jake and Tom. I watch it for the side characters. And Amelie happened to be in season 2, so that's fun. But yeah, she is a great character and definitely a top 5 character from this season. Well, we have 3 left. Let's get to number 3, which is Ted. Well, okay, here's one male character that this Venture Camp really nailed. I feel like my favorite male character up to this point was probably James from season 2. But we finally have some better male characters, somewhat. And Ted, in my opinion, is, as of now, my favorite male character of this Venture Camp. He's just such a fun and unique character. He's a poker player, so he definitely is more of the villain side of things. But that's what makes him tons of fun. He's just unfortunately a very missed potential character, because he ended up being the 3rd character eliminated. I guess with Amelie coming back, the 2nd. What? This is a character that had tons of potential. Why don't you switch him and Logan's character out, and, that makes the season like 10 times better already. Ted is just such an interesting character, and you can tell they really put a lot into his character with all the, the comeback episode and the showing off what, their life looks like outside the game, whatnot. This is a character that should be in fans versus favorites, not Anastasia. And Ted 100% deserves to return in some way, shape, or form in the future because, man, he is just such an interesting character. And along with Linda and, I guess, Richard, it was fun seeing that alliance take off as well. Unfortunately, like I said, Ted got eliminated way too early. But I'm curious to see if ONC has any other future plans for Ted. He's a great character. with that, there's two characters left. So let's get to number two, which is Linda. I already knew just by starting watching this season that Linda was going to be one of my favorite characters. And by the time Linda got eliminated, she still remains one of my absolute favorite characters. Linda's just one of those fun characters that it's fun to watch. And her, character arc was actually fun to watch. It wasn't stupid like some of these other characters were. And she was just a fun character to watch in general. Her and Ted's alliance in the first half of the first like few episodes before Ted got eliminated was tons of fun to watch. And Linda just being that typical mother character actually made it, more interesting and actually unique compared to just the Jake spinoff or the Rhea spinoff or the forced couple, that they always do. Linda is actually a really unique character, and she was actually, tons of fun to watch. Unfortunately, she did end up getting eliminated thanks to Anastasia, one of the worst characters. But man, Linda's time on the show was tons of fun. And once she got eliminated, she just turned into a funny, goofy character along with Ted. So she was definitely easily a fun character. Why would ONC want to get rid of her opposed to someone like Logan or Anastasia? Nobody likes them. I know Linda wasn't necessarily everyone's absolute favorite character at the start, but once she got eliminated, I think a lot of people started to realize how much better of a character she was than Anastasia, which I already knew at the beginning because Linda was just a fun character to watch and a potential villain as well. And it was fun seeing her, like I said, hook with Ted and even Marissa at one point, who helped her through her little character arc. An actual fun character arc to follow. ONC, take tips from Linda. Linda is easily, without a doubt, my second favorite character from Disventure Camp 4. But even with all that, there's still a character I like a little bit more. So with that, let's get to my favorite character from Disventure Camp Season 4, Carnival of Chaos. Easily the most robbed character this season, and that is Isabel. A nun competing in Disventure Camp? That already sounds like a fun idea. And once again, unique. And Isabel proves that it's a fun, Isabel proves that it's going to be a very unique time on the show. And her and Jade end up going together and find a idol, and they make a secret alliance with each other that thankfully both of them made it to merge so that they could kind of use that alliance a little more, especially when Spencer got eliminated. To both work together to eliminate all the characters that nobody liked, like Marissa and Anastasia. Unfortunately, it only works for so long. Because Isabel did end up using her idol to get rid of Marissa, which was a very great move and one of my absolute favorite moments of, Disventure Camp. Plus, Isabel's arc was once again just so much fun to follow. Is she a real nun, or is she kind of a villain? And having Isabel, be a villain is just so great because she just works so well as a villain, but she's also a down-to-earth character too. She's not just a psychopath. Characters like Mal and Rhea, those characters are too cartoony, and those are made by obvious stupid people. Or, okay, stupid writers, I should say, who don't know how to write. But Isabel was an actually good made character and villain of the series. I say villain, but honestly the true villain is Logan and Anastasia. Because man, Isabel was so robbed, especially since, she got eliminated in 5th place. So we got teased with the fans versus favorites, with Benji, Spencer, and Natalia being the 3 to return with that big question mark. But ONC announced that, unfortunately, it wasn't going to be Isabel. Instead, it was going to be Anastasia. Wow. Just wow. What a robbed character, because, man, Isabel 100% deserved the 1 mil. So, here's to hoping that ONC does do a future season, a future All-Star season that Isabel's in. No, not a future All-Star season where the writing is crap. A future season where Isabel is in it and she wins. Period. That's all I got to say about that. But in my opinion, I can consider Isabel my absolute favorite character from Disventure Camp Season 4, Carnival of Chaos, and definitely one of my favorite Disventure Camp characters of all time. Probably second place next to Gabby. Speaking of Gabby, it's so great seeing her return once again in the fans versus favorite season. Plus, I'm really curious to see where this fans versus favorite season goes. However, I will say if ONC messes up fans versus favorites, then that will be the very last season that I watch of Disventure Camp, or at least like in this format, where I wait for an episode to come out. And then get disappointed by the elimination because I already had to sit through all of All Stars and all of this season and be disappointed with a lot of the choices that they made. So I really hope fans versus favorites is an actual like good season from start to finish, not just from start to midway point. Because I feel like ONC has kind of a pattern going on here. So please, please, please do not write your fans versus favorites season poorly. Listen to the viewers. You're gonna lose people if you're gonna continue the same mistakes. And it's not just a bad choice of winner. It's just a lot of other things that they choose to do in these seasons. So let's hope that fans versus favorites is finally a return to normality. You would think after they, did the season 2 reboot that some of that originality of this Venture Camp would kind of come back in a way, but I guess we'll have to wait and see what ends up coming in fans versus favorites. So, yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day.